Alright, so in this video we're going to talk about how to use Nonstop Printing's generated cover templates. So we're going to go over navigating templates, setting things up in InDesign, organizing layers, exporting the cover template, and you can just send the file after. You can find this article if you just go to help.nonstopprinting.com and search for cover templates, so you can review this at any time. Alright, so the first thing is a lot of times we're going to send you files like this. It'll have a bunch of different documents for you, tools and things like that, and we'll go over other ones later. What we're going to focus on at this point is the cover template. Okay, so what's a cover template? What tends to be the most confusing part of making a book, if you look at the screen, is how to make this, right? With a book, the cover is actually made of a single sheet, right? Like this, that wraps around a book block like this. So the template is something that we're going to create for you once we know the number of pages, the size, and the paper that you're using. And it makes it so you can design this front cover, the spine, and the back cover easily, and even how to work with the inside front cover and the inside back cover of a book. So that's what we're going over. This is a physical reference, and for the example file I'm using it as well. So when you get the link from us, it'll look something like this. Sometimes we'll send it directly, but all you have to do is click on this cover template file. And the first one we'll use is the outside cover template. We're going to look at it in Acrobat, and you could of course bring this into Illustrator, Photoshop, whatever. I recommend using Indesign. InDesign's amazing because it's going to look the best with text. Text comes out really sharp in InDesign and Illustrator, but what makes InDesign the best for book covers is you can have the best images and the best text quality, and the file won't get too large. So we're going to show you how to do that. When I open the outside cover template, it's going to look something like this. It's going to have indications of what the front cover is, right, and what the back cover is. I'm not sure why I did that. Oh, cool. And it has some explanations. So this red line, which is explained up here, the red line represents where the background art should go, so that you will not see thin white lines once we trim the book down, and the gray lines represent the hinge crease of the book. Okay, so the red line out here is where artwork should go if you don't want thin white lines at the end, and the green line is actually where we trim it. So if we're looking at a physical book, the green line represents this edge. Okay. Now the red line is beyond this. It would be here, for example, in real life. And you want your art to go that way because there's imperfection in print. If you don't give us a buffer, you might see like thin white lines here. So you want to give us that extra art around it. You're basically accounting for buffer and for movement in the physical production process of books. In general, we always need tolerances. Okay. And then the gray line on the screen, here and here, represent the hinge. Okay. So the hinge is probably the easiest to see it this way. So a lot of people think the book is just like this, right? But once you open it, you actually realize that there is a hinge, right? That goes about 1/4 inch into the book. Okay, so that's the gray line. On this book, you can't really see it too well. Maybe over here you'll see it. Yeah, there it is. See that line there? That's where the side glue goes. So yeah, just know that that's there. It can affect your design, especially if you have a very minimalistic design. So that's why we indicate it there. And just to explain the inside cover, it's very similar. Almost looks identical, but those magenta lines, or anything in between the magenta lines, will not be printed because we need that for gluing, right? So if you look at the hard sample, the inside front cover is this, right? When you open the book, it's this. Inside back, it's the back of the book. And what the magenta lines represent, again, is actually where the glue is attaching the inside book block and all that stuff. So just like that, you can see the book attaches to the side hinge and it attaches to the spine. Okay, so that's how the inside works and why you don't want to put any art in the magenta area. All right, so that's how that works. The second really important part for this is this information down below. So our cover template is going to be based on information like the thickness of each sheet, which we know in our orders. In the quotes that we send you, we'll actually show you the thickness of a book, of a single sheet. This number is actually equivalent to points. So 6.1 point, for example, is actually 0.0061 inches thick. So that's just how you convert points into inches. So that's the thickness of a sheet, which you would find out from us. The page count is reliant on what you give us. A lot of times we try to look at your files to do a final confirmation on page count, because obviously that's important. And the book block width is the size of the inside pages. So, for example, this book is 10.2 inches wide, and it's 8.75 inches tall, which is that next section. Okay, so that's the information that we input into the system, and then it actually spits out these measurements, and this is what you're going to use in InDesign. Okay, so there you go. So that's the first step. We're going to create an InDesign template with this information. Okay, so to do that, a lot of times I have two monitors, so I'd have this on the left side, but for this example, I'll just go to and from. You click on InDesign, you go to File, you make a new document, and you're just going to paste in the information from here. So the cover trim width is 21.13. 21.13. The cover trim height is 8.75. And this is all the same, but just to give you time to analyze. And the trick here in InDesign is we're actually going to use columns. So columns can be used a lot of different ways. For us right now, we're going to use it as the spine, and you'll see why in a sec. So this needs to be 2, always, for a pivot bound book. And the column gutter would be the number that you put for the spine width. So in this case, 0.63. Margins don't really do anything for covers, so you can just set that at 0. Bleed and slug, you want your bleeds at 0.125, and your slug should be at 0. So this is a perfect setup. If you did it right, it should look something like this. Okay, and I'm just going through this to make sure I'm on track. Yep. And again, all the notes are here if you want to reference it. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Now you can bring in a template. So we're going to go to bring in the template. You can just go to File and bring in any element. You could just go to File and click on Place or Control D. Navigate to my cover template, and I'm going to bring in outside cover template. Here you just want to make sure you select media and press OK, and click anywhere to drop it. And here's a cool trick. So it's not centered, right? One cool thing about InDesign is there's really quick things, just I think like Illustrator. The first place you want to go to is these little icons up here. Click on Align to Spread, and then click on the object you just brought in, which is a template, and you just press these two, and it's centered. Now you might ask yourself, why does this look blurry? It's because InDesign is trying to make the program run really efficiently for you. But if you want things to look really sharp, it'll do that, no problem, but it's going to slow down your performance. So I typically go from here and here depending on what I'm working on. but just to show you, this looks crystal clear now. Again, if I want performance to look be faster, you go back to typical display, and you'll notice it's a lot easier to work in InDesign. Okay, because there's not very many pages, I'll actually change it to high. All right, so once you have your cover in and in place, you're going to go to your Layers tab. You go to Window, and then you click on Layers, and you'll see this. We're going to rename that by double-clicking on it and typing in template. Pressing Enter. And then we're going to lock it by clicking on this empty space next to the eyeball. Why do you want to do that? Well, it's cool because, and this is good for anything in InDesign or Illustrator, and probably Photoshop, I can't touch this now, right? Which is really helpful. I want to see it there, but I don't want to be able to touch it or mess with it. Okay. So now you can bring in your art. So I pressed plus down there, and I'm typing in art. And now you can go to File, Place, and bring in your elements that you want to work with. So, for example, if you look at my screen, we're going to bring in the front cover, and that's going to go on this side. And you can position how you want. Again, you want your background art to go to the red line. You don't want it to go here. If you go here, you're going to get thin white lines. And your cover will look horrible. So bring in your element, and one cool thing if you use columns is it's very easy to center objects. You see how it's locking in with that crosshair? So you got that. Got the front cover. I'm going to place again by pressing Command or Control D, just because it's faster. Double click, and you can click on the page that you want. This is a big document, right? 196 pages. If I want to go to the back cover, in my particular case, I can press that button and just drop it in. Okay, so InDesign is powerful. This was obviously pre-laid out by the graphic designer, but you could have brought in an image or whatever, right? So if I move that down, you could create a text box by pressing the T, typing it in. Super easy. There's so many ways to do it. You probably want to take a class on this if you're not comfortable, but if you press Command or Control B, you can center that text. There's all sorts of ways to manipulate text, so it's really easy once you get used to it, and you can change it. And there's some cool text editing features, and obviously you can bring in elements using place. And InDesign is a place to do that. So you can have perfectly crisp text. You know it's perfectly crisp because if I zoom on it a million times, it's crisp no matter what. The problem with images is that if they're not made in vector, his cover was made in InDesign, so that's great. But notice that it starts getting rasterized here. Okay. In terms of resolution, if you're wondering what is good enough, you want to do something called the 300% test. So I'm zooming in at 300% in InDesign or in Acrobat. See that number there? If it looks good at 300, which this does, then this is how it's going to print. This would be as if you were 6 inches away from it in real life. If you're holding the book about this close, this is what it's going to look like at 300%. All right. So I'm doing that. And again, this purple line represents the spine, right? And if you turn off the template, it would just show what's in InDesign. Okay. So if you want it nice and clean, just view and unview. Super cool. But I'm placing my elements just like that. And just like that. And I could place in my spine just like this. Again, this guy made it really easy for me. And I could even just center it. And there you go. And that spine's obviously too thick. That would look weird. So we're going to just bring these in. Okay. And all this is perfect again because the artwork goes to the red line. If you press W on your keyboard, you get to see what it looks like when it's trimmed and when it's not trimmed. Not trimmed. Pressing W. Super cool feature. So there you go. This would be a perfectly executed cover at this point. Just a quick example, right? But again, you could completely design your cover here. I actually recommend it. That's what Travis Jensen did. He used InDesign. I quickly taught him how to use it. All right, so there you go. That's how you do the front cover. If you want to do the back cover, you essentially just repeat. So you drag the master. So I click, drag, and there you go, page 2. And that's in the Pages palette, going to Window Pages. And again, pressing Command or Control D, I'm going to navigate to covers if I wanted to bring in the template. And we're going to do the inside cover template. Make sure that's set to media. Transparent background is good. Press OK. And if you want to put this in the right location, right now the template doesn't show up, right? So if I want to put it here, I could click on here, but notice that I have this error. There's a pen and a little cancel icon. The only reason why that's happening is because you have to unlock the layer that you want to drop it in. So once you press the unlock layer, notice how it shows up. Drag, center, center, lock, bring in my art. And so for example, if I want to bring in my inside front cover, there you go. Inside, oops, just kidding, not the spine. Inside back, oops, going too fast. So I'm going to go to back cover. Inside back cover for me is page 195. And there you go. And again, anything in the magenta will not print. And even anything here towards the spine, again, this is the binding area if you look at my camera, right? So I'm going to move my art so that it's not there. This is a reason why you really don't want to do any kind of crossovers. Like, you don't want to put like a person's body on this side and it continue on this side, because it will get chopped up. It won't look good. So really think about how you're going to design your inside, front, and back cover. Travis in this case was great, right? He did do a crossover, but it was the same exact graphic going across. Even this is risky, and we have to be on top of our game to make sure that these lines match up. So this is even not recommended. If you have to do it, do what you got to do. It could take time. It might not line up perfectly, but yeah. The best covers are really simple, right? Where you either have nothing on the inside cover, or just a logo, or just some text. You really don't want to get too fancy on the inside, front, and back cover. It's the first impression that someone gets of your book, and if something is awry, or if those lines didn't match up, it could really hurt the quality of your book immediately, right? It's why a lot of companies don't even accept printing on the inside, front, and back cover. They just don't even want to deal with it, okay? But there you go. This would be a great setup. Again, I'm checking everything's going to the red lines. That is going to the edge. And we're ready to go. We're going to quickly look at our guide to see if there's anything we missed. So we talked about all this stuff. Talked about creating a template. Talked about high quality display. No print will show up in between the magenta lines. All right. So now that you've done that, you're nearly there. You just need to export. To export, you go to File, Export. And you can save wherever you want. I'm going to just name it whatever, but, well, the best way to name it is your company name, Nonstop Printing, dash project name, Barbary Coast Book, and then cover. And a really good best practice, do V1, because if you have a V2, then you have V2, and it just makes your naming very easy. Try not to do like final, I promise final, yeah, like all that kind of stuff. Really just go V1, V2, V3. Press enter and save it where you are going to remember where it is. And you click on the top part here and click on PDFX4. And then you just go to marks and bleeds and change all these to 0.125. This lock here makes it so that it all stays the same. So yeah, just make sure all these are 0.125, and that's it. You don't need to go anywhere else in here. Just go to PFX4, and then go here. And then click Export. One more thing. So this is not something you can really do in InDesign, but if you're working with images, in general, when it comes to printing, you actually want to be designing. If you're the graphic designer, you want to be looking and designing your work in Adobe PDF. And so we're going to click on that here. This is the one that I just made. So you want to look at it in Adobe Acrobat, the file, and you want to look at this on a Mac monitor, and you want to have it at 50% brightness. Okay. If you design with 50% brightness on a Mac monitor, our printing devices all try to calibrate to something like that. Now, it'll never be the same. If you go to Best Buy, you'll notice every monitor is different. That happens everywhere, right? But Mac monitors are the closest thing to what we produce to, and it's also the most consistent kind of monitor that is out there that a lot of people have. So if you don't have one, you probably have a friend, right? If you're working on a book project and it means a lot to you, then I really would recommend, just transferring the image that you have. Especially for dark images, people are constantly surprised that something came out way darker than they expected. Why is that? Because most people work on either a PC screen, which are completely unreliable, or if you're on a Mac screen, you just jack up the brightness, right? If you're watching a movie, right, and you can't see something in dark, what's the first thing you do? You brighten the monitor. That is bad for printing, okay? So make sure. That's a super important tip when working with print files. So if you did everything right, this is what it looks like. And the last trick is you want to use Adobe Acrobat Pro, and you probably have it if you have InDesign, okay? And this way you can kind of see your work. The other thing is you're seeing these lines that you probably don't see on yours. The way to get there is to go to Tools and search Output. And then click on Output Preview. And you check or uncheck that. So what you guys are probably seeing is this document, and it looks like this, and you actually have no idea if it's bleeding or not. Like, bleed again is that red area. It's the extra image that's out there, right? So what's cool about this is you can actually see and double check if things make sense by checking that box. And we have other guys that talk about other tools. This is one of our favorite tools in Acrobat. Especially when you're doing more advanced things like foil, embossing. It all kind of comes down to Output Preview and checking your work. When I uncheck and check this, you'll see the green line show up. And what the green line represents, again, is where we are going to cut the final book down. So for example, the green line represents, in this case, represents exactly this edge here of the book, right? And then on the left side, that would be this edge of the book, for example. Okay, so that's why this is super helpful. Again, get used to using Output Preview if you're printing stuff. What's funny, notice how you see the template behind it. Let's say you don't like that. It should not print, but if you want it to be safe, all you have to do is unview this template. And we're going to do this, and look how easy this is. V2, boom. And export again, make sure the bleeds are right. And there you go. So V2, same thing, but notice how that template doesn't show up in the back after. So you can see there's a lot of layers and stuff going on, especially for heavier files like this. So if you want a super clean file, just hide template, and it'll look good. Good luck. If you have any questions, let us know. Book covers are typically the most complex thing. You can get even more advanced if you want to do flaps and things like that. That does drive up the price of the project, but it all kind of goes back to your InDesign file, and we can create templates if you want flaps, for example. So this is really foundational. Hopefully this is helpful, and good luck. Send us the file. If it's wrong, it's totally okay, right? We'll give feedback. We know that this is intimidating in the beginning, and hopefully these guides kind of help that. I promise you, if you get comfortable with it and if you keep printing stuff, you're going to love InDesign more and more. Thanks so much.